Welcome to the June 30th edition of Collect Our Cousins, Engaging White People in the Struggle for Full Democracy. I'm Karen Fleshman, founder of Racy Conversations and of Collect Our Cousins. I created this weekly live stream to help white people like me become more effective in the conversations with white people in our lives about racism. I'm featuring the people who inspire and teach me the most about how to engage white people in the movement for full democracy to help us build an embodied anti-racist white culture, in the words of Resmaa Menakem. White Americans, the battle for our democracy will not be won in courtrooms or on the streets. It must be won in white living rooms, across our dinner tables, at our school board meetings. As an anti racist, collecting my cousins often falls to the end of my to do list. Oh, I'll get to that next month. But I want to encourage everyone watching this here to write a list of your friends and family you will collect this year. There are 21 million Americans, largely white, who believe that Donald Trump is the legitimate president and political violence may be necessary to restore him. And we are frontline in the effort to prevent a civil war. So thank you so much, Cindi Bright. I am so honored that you are joining us here today. I'm so grateful for you and all the work that you do to transform politics, to transform workplaces, to heal our country. And I have grown so much from listening to you and learning from you and following you. And I'm so grateful that you're making time today to join us on Collect Our Cousins.
Thank you, Karen. I'm glad you invited me to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you today. I can't wait to see where it goes. You know, I do this all the time.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some of your identity markers that are sort of the source for your perspective on things.
mm, yeah, I am the hashtag older chick. I had a 30-year career in corporate America, and I spent the last 12 plus years as an executive in corporate America as an HR executive. So, from the perspective of the workplace and understanding issues around leaders and culture and racism and how this all works with brown and black people inside of corporate America, I'm just an expert in that space after having lived in and led in those spaces. I was fired in 2012. I was fired for an interesting for part of this conversation we'll have today about to the degree white women will go for power and money, including our own friends. And so in 2012, I had gone to school. I got my MBA. I started a business, a company. You know this. I published a book last year. I'm hoping I could talk about it a little bit today. My book is called The Color of Courage, Crushing Racism in Corporate America. It actually talks, chapter one is my whole story, which actually reads like a novel. I keep hearing when people read it about what went down. And then it's led me to, in 2018, starting a radio show called Heartbeat Radio. It's diverse community broadcasting here in Seattle, although it's picked up listenership outside of Washington State now. So the show is in its fifth year. It's going good. It's political, it's business, and it's addressing all of these issues around ecosystem for progress for brown and black people. So that's been my life's mission. I am biracial. My mom is German, and I've done my 23andme.com. I am actually 60.4% German and French and 40% black. Isn't that interesting considering how the world sees me? So that's my kind of backstory about how I got to where I am today.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just for those who don't know, I identify as a cisgender white woman. I'm middle class and I'm the mom of two kids. And I also identify strongly as someone who follows and 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 does all I can to protect Black women. So and oh, thank you so much for joining us, S and SL. Yes, and please, if you're joining us, we'd love to hear where you're joining us from, and any questions you may have for Cindi. Go ahead and pop that in the chat. So let's dive right in on the conflict that we are experiencing right now. Um, uh, a week ago, the Supreme Court issued their decision overruling Roe v. Wade. 13 states immediately enacted trigger laws banning abortion. Another 13 states are in the process of banning abortion. And there was a huge outcry, and a lot of white women expressing fear, anger, outrage. And what was kind of the backlash to that?
You know, I talked about this on my show last night with the two senators because we talked about the fact that the reaction that we're seeing of white women right now. It's just interesting because all of this, from my perspective, was predictable.
Mm,
And so the thing that we don't, that we as, as people, I'll just say people in general, have tended to ignore, including myself up to, a few years ago. We ignored politics because it's gross. And it is. I actually ran for office up here in the Seattle area in 2018, as you know. It's awful and sickening, but it is the system we have. And this is all the result of one election. And so the 2016 election, when 53% of white women decided to line up with the patriarchy with increased numbers, it's going to be fascinating to look at what that percentage is now. And it is also interesting when I hear people say they will vote for him again. And so the sheer fact that we can look at the news and we can see every single day he's a treasonist, he's a rapist, he's a con artist, like all the things, and yet they will still follow him and re-vote for him. That what's feeding that, what fuels someone to think that way, is exactly what has played out in women community, and what women are willing to do to another woman so that they can have. And they look past the personal impact that it'll have. If you want to talk at a deeper level around generational trauma, look at what they're creating in their own families by spewing so much negative and harm to other people. And I heard Alfred Woodard say this in a movie once, and she said, this was in The Family That Prays. I don't know if you ever saw it, as a Tyler Perry movie. And she said her daughter was having this affair with the CFO. It's interesting because that is exactly what went down in my book. But her daughter thought that she was going to end up marrying this white guy. And Alfred Woodard looked at her and said, where did I go wrong with you?
mm.
She said, you can't find happiness by creating harm for somebody else. You can't
Say
joy
that
doesn't
again. Say that again, Cindi.
you can't create you can't be happy. You will not experience joy by creating harm for somebody else. And
White
so
women, are you listening to that?
the simple fact that someone believes that the kind of maniac tyrant that is out here unleashed all his people and all of the hiddenness. Let's be clear about something. All that we see happening on national news, the insurrection, all the let's talk to white women.
They
Men,
planned January 6th. They
mhm,
organized the rally.
mhm.
They did a bus tour to drive participation to January 6th. Ginny Thomas, wife of Clarence Thomas, communicating all day long with Mark Meadows. They laid all the groundwork, and they were a fair share of the people, of the terrorists who entered the Capitol were white women. And now Ashley Babbitt is their martyr, that they're using to rally further support for their cause.
Mhm. Look at the even the murders of black men in the streets and the moms who will drive their sons. Let's talk about Kyle Rittenhouse. That, she drove him to the scene to go murder.
Yeah.
And, we're looking at him, but we should be looking at her,
Right.
right? Because what's happening to all of us as women right now, we can all and have every right to be pissed off at white male patriarchy, who all of what they're trying to do. But I'm going to try to say this respectfully because I know men probably watch this show too. That men cannot succeed without women. They just can't. Any of
That
us
is
who've been around,
literally why they imported.
yes.
The patriarchy imported white women to this country to make the plantation an intergenerational enterprise. They knew that they could run around raping Black women, Native women, and they continued to do so. But if they exclusively did that, pretty soon they would lose track of who was in charge around here. So they
Mm,
had to have white women to produce white heirs and teach them the ways of white supremacy and police the plantation, be an extra set of eyes, enforce so that they could be off writing the Declaration of Independence, fighting the Revolutionary War,
mhm,
you know, organizing the Constitution and engage in public life. So they
mm.
have white women running the household. And so,
And Karen, this isn't when you're describing that, I hear women resist that we keep talking about history, but let me show or talk to the audience about why that is not history, why that is actually today, and what that looks like today. And so, my whole lane around corporate America, when you look at, and I don't know if any of you all have read my book, but I talk about the fact that the house women, the white women that are brought in to sweep and control, that's your whole middle management rank. Let's talk about every organization out there because people, talk about the fact that it's the top, it's all these guys. Yeah, that's true. But they can't function without that middle management full of white women. And let's talk about the fact that every organization who talks about diversity, the only people prevailing, the majority of the people prevailing on diversity initiatives are white women. So they're using gender as a vehicle to control outcomes of brown and black people. And then they wonder why there's no progress. And let me break that down even further. Those women all appear to be woke, a believer in diversity. They'll say all the right things for the patriarchy, and then think that women like me actually believe them anymore because we have
mhm.
watched their moves. And so black women have studied white women to the core. And so, we can smell we can smell them. That's how the discernment has happened in, BIPOC community is it's not what you can see anymore because what you can see is just portrayals, social media, what they portray themselves to be. But when you have lived at the hands and the wrath of a white woman with power, you can smell it and your soul can feel it when you walk into a room with them. You know how to guard and protect yourself because n- people around they may not see that or understand it because they've been so steeped into that kind of behavior that they don't understand what's actually happening outside of rooms.
I agree with 100% with everything that you're saying. And I will add this, that white women also treat each other this way. I myself have experienced the worst. I mean, in the workplace, I experienced sexual harassment, wage gap, glass ceiling at the hands of white men. But by far, the most psychologically harmful behavior I experienced came from white women who were senior to me in the organization
Yeah.
and perceived me as a threat to their
Yeah.
proximity to white men in power and did all they could to like first draw me in and get me to open up and share and approach me as a mentor and confidant, then take the things that I shared with them in confidence and twist it around and stab
100.
me in the back. And it
100.
it was so psychologically harmful. I had to go to therapy to like recover from this because it really, eh, I am someone who believes in sisterhood. I am someone who genuinely wants all women to be safe, successful, thriving, happy. I don't look at another woman's success and feel jealousy. I celebrate her and I see her as my sister. And I don't see, if what Audre Lorde said, I am not free until any woman is unfree, even if her shackles are very different from my own. Coming back to the white women who voted for Trump, I mean, interesting that Representative Miller, who said this is a huge victory for the white nation, won her primary. Kristen Boebert won her primary. Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the most successful fundraisers, along with Matt Gaetz, who sex trafficked a minor.
That should be that all that should be you're just restating what I'm, and this is inherently why we as Black women do not trust white women, period.
Yes.
Because we look at what's being promoted. Let me another example. Let me talk, since I'm in the political world heavily. I read a lot about, the press that has come out about Liz Cheney, because Liz is the Republican woman who has, and so there's, I've read these articles about her courage and all these sorts of things. And I'm sitting there thinking, isn't that what she's elected to do? Like, that isn't that what we put people in office to do, is to actually protect our rights and fight for. And so she's touted as a hero for doing her job, of which we as taxpayers, we as people put these folks in office. Now it does take courage to stand up against those guys. So I'm not taking away from that. I'm just highlighting the fact that, when a white woman is out front doing something, she's a hero. When a Black woman tries to get out front, she's trampled over by that white woman,
Mm.
marginalized by that, right? And portrayed by her.
Yes. Today, Ketanji Brown Jackson is being sworn in as our first Black woman Supreme Court justice. Yay. But the most horrific part of that awful hearing was when she was being questioned by Marsha Blackburn, the senator from Tennessee. After being all those white male senators going after her, ripping her, what Marsha Blackburn had to get in there and dig too. Like she could have said, lay off, use your position to confront those people, confront your peers. And instead, the way, literally the way she talked to her, I felt like we were on a plantation and Marsha Blackburn was speaking to uh, her enslaved woman.
Mhm. Look,
And that's what my mentor Resma Menachem says, that what the Republicans want to, what the Trump people want to recreate is the plantation.
mhm.
And that is what I yelled. I was one of the women disrupting the Kavanaugh
I
hearings.
saw you. I watched
And
I watched
one of the things I yelled in there is, this is not a plantation, because literally that is how they behave. They
Mhm.
swagger in there like their ego is this big. And it's
Mhm.
like they look at the public with disdain. It's not normal. Like, you are elected
Yes.
by the public, like you work for us, but that
Mhm.
is not how they behave.
Mm-mm. Or what they believe, because they believe that they are entitled to every leadership position out there. They don't see themselves as working for us. they see themselves as superior to us. And so
100%.
when you start talking to me about breaking that down, about how we look at, I'm just going to say Black people, I'm going to generalize it because Black men suffer from this behavior as well. In fact, it's all in the news today too, with the demanding now of justice for the woman who accused Emmett Till. Are you following the news story about
Yes.
that? That's
Yes.
breaking, right? Look if in that situation, what it has taken. Look at how many years have going by.
And
People,
she admitted that
hmm
she lied.
hmm
Carolyn
we
Bryant
all we
admitted
all
that she
know,
lied.
Karen. We all know to the degree that they will go to harm somebody because they believe that they are owed access to everything. And the
Yes.
how dare us, I can speak to my own perspective about the ordeals that I've had to deal with over my entire life. But I'm just going to put it in the parenthesis of these women. These women are fundamentally the problem in this
Yes.
country because they can change everything that's going on. They can change it and they choose
Say
not.
that again. Say that
They
again.
can
White
change it
women.
and change it.
If we decide to leave the plantation crumbles, okay? It can't function without us, okay? I know it's hard because it's our husbands, it's our dads, it's our sons, but we have to think about our daughters. We have to think about ourselves. The scariest part of Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony is when she said that Donald Trump lunged for the steering wheel. And then when the Secret Service agent said he can't do that, he lunged for the clavicle of the Secret Service agent. That is classic abuser behavior. And let's think about it. The white men in power teach us white women to be terrified of the subhuman Black man who's coming to rape us, when in actuality that virtually never happens. Almost all rape is by someone you know. And for in white culture, rape is endemic. It happens exactly like the Brett Kavanaugh, Christine Blasey Ford situation. That's what happened to me. One minute I was making out with a popular, athlete from my high school. I was a 16-year-old sophomore. He was a senior. The next thing I knew, he ripped my dress open, climbed on top of me, and raped me. And I know that same story has happened to countless white women. And instead, our trauma response is, instead of holding that person to account, we fawn, we identify with them and try to protect them. This is very,
And
very
now,
sick
Karen, and
behavior
now
by white women.
because of that behavior, what that has created for all of us women is now we can't discern the truth anymore. So the women who are actually being put in harm's way, every one of us, particularly when we see white women come forward, every one of us has this huge question mark about whether she's actually being honest, whether she is just sabotaging and setting that man up, that woman, we don't
Right.
know anymore because and so the women who are legitimately needing their voices heard and needing social change are being further harmed because the fact that you get clumped into the same box as all white women because me as a Black woman looks at a buck, we look at the white women and I'm like, I don't know which of them I can trust. And it
Mm,
takes a lot to build trust, a lot to build trust, to
right.
feel safe and know that your personal business, your vagina is not going to be put out in the street because the stroke of a pen of a white woman and her wrath and jealousy and anger and what that has created for unleashing these men to do what you went through, Karen, to do to this is the society now that we're all unsafe in because of this, and it is
And Brett
fundamentally about
Kavanaugh gets confirmed. What does that
yeah,
tell all young boys? Kyle
yeah,
Rittenhouse gets exonerated. What does that tell all young boys?
yeah, yeah. The other interesting, why I think this is scarier than what we actually think or imagine is because I'm just going to put it in the category of social media. What social media has done is has these women, the performative nature of caring about this is so, the ingrained behavior around taking a picture of myself and then telling the world how wonderful I am, and and I'm this, I'm that, I'm qualified, I'm all this, and then the white colonized culture is like, oh, we need to hire her. She's blah 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 blah. She'd never even set foot out doing A, B, C, and D, but she doesn't have to. And so all of this stuff that is going on that is generating even more voting and more support behind right-winged white supremacist thinking. That's all at play right now. And the stirring around us, the things we can't see yet, we think we've seen it all. I don't think we've seen it all.
No, January 6th was a test. It was a preview. And the folks who organized it want a civil war.
Yeah.
They talked to journalists about it. They're showing up here in the Bay Area at trans library hour to terrorize kids and their parents and the librarians and the trans reader for the library hour.
Mm-hmm.
That they are terrorists, these folks. They are total terrorists, and they want complete and utter control. You look at who endorsed Trump in 2016. The National Rifle Association, the National Fraternal Order of Police, the Border Patrol Union, and the KKK.
Yep.
And then all these corporations. Can we talk about the hypocrisy of these corporations saying, oh, we'll pay for your travel to get an abortion? That's just like the white woman posting the picture, right? Meanwhile, these same corporations donated to the Republican senators who confirmed those Supreme Court justices. They donate to the Republican Attorney General's Association that brought the Dobbs case. They donate to the Republican state lawmakers who are passing the abortion bans. Yet forward facing, they try and pink wash all that by saying, oh, we'll pay for our employees' abortions.
Let me also break down why that's even so problematic for brown and black women. First off, we know that access to health care for brown and black women is the same in proportion to what we're paid on salaries and fees and all that. It's just not there for us. Why what is happening is even more scarier. So here's my HR hat coming into play, is because if brown and black women go forward there's going to be a process to be able to access that money, right? The travel and all that sort of stuff. So the people you have to go in and talk to access that are going to be your HR people. And who do you think is the most problematic inside of any organization?
White women HR people.
And so these are the kind of things that people don't realize. I think to your point, yeah, they are forward facing and saying we're going to do this. It's the same as what happened when George Floyd died and all of our inboxes were flooded with, we believe in racial justice, and we haven't heard shit since that day. And there has been very little progress made to anything tangible. So beyond talking about it, the tangibles, now you could argue that putting these benefits in place is a tangible step. In the front facing optics of it, it is. In the back side of it, what that will do to compromise us, I'm going to say us as brown and black women, is far more dangerous. Not only because the HR people will know about it, but then they start talking about it to other people in the community. And again, I talk about this in my book about the undercurrent, the back current that goes on with these folks talking to each other about outside of companies, so that the women are being blackballed out of other opportunities because that one white woman's opinion and the fact that she now saw that this black woman had an abortion. What do you think is going to be being said about Black women
Mm.
when Black women access that benefit will be called whores. Like we're always saying, well, it's called a whore in open court. Like they stop at nothing to destroy us. And so this is why, even when we think that on the optics, like something, a decision is made that is right, if you're not dealing with, they're focusing on the what. If we focus on the what and not the who, we're missing the boat. And so every
Yes.
organization is focusing on the what, but you have a who component to it, which is full of these white women that are doing this. And so,
Yes.
look, I have a cry out to, I don't understand that kind of thinking. And that is ugliness inside of people that want to do that to somebody else. And um, I said this in my TED talk. The phrase I use is I said, I am not who you think I am. You are who you think I am.
Mm.
And so if you can't, if we as women, individual women, can't come to terms with ourselves, with who we really are inside, and there's no shame in acknowledging that I've got some mess inside of me I need to deal with and work on because it's manifesting and showing itself in the world and towards other women. That's fundamentally the number
Say
one.
that again, Cindi.
Like if we cannot fundamentally look at our, and it's not easy to do. Let me tell you, the moment I had to really look at myself, the
Mm.
moment I had to look at myself was truly, and to be honest, it was in 2019 because and now the world will know, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I am 3 years cancer free. So I'm just saying that it's all good.
Yay!
But at the time, when it got into lymph nodes and I had to go through chemo, if any women are listening to this and have been through chemotherapy, they will totally relate to what I'm about to say. So look, I got all this hair. I had to shave my head. I had no eyelashes, no hair, and the chemo alters like your skin complexion, like it's brutal medicine. But I remember walking into the bathroom. I was hurting it because it gets into your bones, the ache, the pain. And I looked in the mirror and I didn't even recognize myself.
Mm.
Like I'm so used to focusing on, my hair did and all that sort of stuff, but it was a deeper look because I was facing my mortality at the time. And I said to myself, am I good? Am I good? Am I a good
Mm.
person? Like, am I, because I get a lot of rejection. Now, it caused a lot of pivots in my life to come out of that. And it's a painful way to have to actually face your actual soul and look at yourself and your soul and say, am I good? Because if we're not good inside inherently and want to do good in the world and to help other people, look, you never see a Loomis following a hearse, right? Do you get that analogy? You can't take all that. If this is all about money, that's a sickness of a relationship with money. And, I say, like these women who chase, I'll just politely say it, men or money. I have a much more graphic way of describing it. Look, if he better have a hell of a gold mine in him for me to want to destroy millions of people's lives now, which is what is happening. And so the
Because he
blood,
will just replace you in a heartbeat with the next one anyway.
look, the blood is on the hand. Now you start to watch what's going to start to happen to women across this country. And the people we can thank for that are these 53% and growing numbers of women that don't
More
care
white
about.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. What were you saying?
More white women voted for him in 2020 than
Yeah.
voted for him in 2016.
And so all your stuff, like you guys in San Francisco just have your DA recalled and was
Yes.
replaced. So all of these seats, this is the stuff I talk about on my show every week because none of us, well, I'm just, I'm generalizing it, but up until Donald Trump coming in office, I had no reason to know who was the attorney general. I had no reason to pay attention to who the prosecutors are. I had no reason to understand who was being put on Supreme Court. Like not, it just wasn't in my radar. And I think a lot of people it wasn't. And now here we are, and we have, and it ain't just about, look, we got to be able to discern right people putting into these seats. Um, what do they call him? Uncle Thomas back on the Supreme Court, who is still back there siding with the patriarchy so that he has access to their money and power. Like,
That's what I want to get to. Like, in the midst of all of this, what is actually fueling this is the greatest wealth transfer in American history from the middle class to the billionaire class. The billionaires, and now Jeff Bezos is a trillionaire, expanded their wealth exponentially during the pandemic. And at the same time, more than 50% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And with each year, that percent grows greater.
Let me expand on that, Karen, because
Yeah.
there are some very tactical things. I think you probably know some of this, and I'm just, for the purpose of the audience that's listening, I want to explain a few things about why this is so important. What Karen just said about the power, the money, and how much they've expanded their wealth. Several things here. So during the pandemic, I don't know if we both have small businesses. I started or attempted to access the benefits that were being given to businesses, small businesses. So the first round of PPP, there was nobody knew what to do back in Washington, D.C. So they were giving out money and you apply and you got X dollars. Send us a couple of your 1099s from last year. What I did, they got me a check. Carried me a little bit. Second round comes out. And by this time, all the white guys have figured out how we as brown and black people were able to access some of the money. So second round comes out and there's a whole different set of criteria on how to access this money. And so that criteria started this bureaucracy, including a requirement to look at Schedule C, line 13, which is your profitability line. Let's be clear about profitability in brown and black communities and the things that we have to do. That's even as women, right? We as women, because you fit in this bucket too, Karen, right? Like those of us who speak out and do work around these issues are not seen as popular by the white women who are in charge or the white
Say
people.
that again.
And the people who are being put now to screen our applications for access to that money. So, of course, major companies take a look at their payroll taxes they pay. They look at their profitability line, look at how much money they got free from the government, while the smaller businesses, micro businesses, we couldn't touch any of that money. So here they are. All they have to do is take that money and start investing it into different things. They're not hurting. We are still out here hurting, trying to recover from pandemic. Now in Washington State, because I'm politically active, I'm engaging my legislators to help them to understand how this is actually shaking itself out so that they understand that we're actually not being helped. So these, again, another colonized system, because all the people who participate in deciding what the process will be for people to access this money, I guarantee you, they were 99% white men making that decision so that they could manipulate and get access to all of it. That's a small example of anything, I talk about in my book about how the money is accessed inside of corporate America. It is not through a salary. We do not build wealth through salaries. We build
Say
wealth
it again.
We don't build wealth through a salary. We build wealth through income. And the way that they have structured their compensation in business does not give us as women access to it. Some women, small percentage, and if those women are not behaving in a way that helps the other women behind her prosper, then it's just continuing to kill out our access for wealth. And they know that. They don't
Women
want
in the United States, out of all the wealthy Western countries, we have the worst income gap. Of course, it's worse for Black women, women of color. We have the highest maternal mortality rates. We have the least political representation. White men make up 30% of our country, and they make up 62% of public officials. We have the least life expectancy, and our life expectancy is going down. Our lives are freaking impossible. And now
Mhm.
you add to this that 6 unelected Americans with a swipe of a pen just made all women and uterus carrying people
Yep.
second-class citizens.
Now, look, we're going to have to mobilize. We're going to have to start getting, the hashtag, your audience won't know me this way, you know me this way. But look, let's just start promoting, hashtag cut their dicks, right? Like, let's start, like, well, mandatory.
Hashtag
Like,
Lorena
let's,
Bobbitt.
right. I mean, they're the ones create. If you don't want us to have access to healthcare, to birth control, and all the things for your whatever your
Guess
reasons
what
are,
you're not getting
you're
access
not
to?
getting it either. So, cut the nuts, right? Hashtag cut their nuts. Like, let's just stop. Let's just be real
Yeah,
about we're
okay, I am not going to advocate actually, physical violence against men, but I will say this, we are not going to turn the tide of this country having a women's march type march, okay? This
Mhm.
is going to take serious civil disobedience. This is going to take shutting whole cities down, general strikes. This is going to take a level of solidarity across women, across race, across income that we have never experienced before. And this has always been the plantation owner's rule of success. If I can get everybody on the plantation to hate each other and hate themselves, then I will be able to control them. And just like Audre Lorde taught us, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. So we are going to have to learn how to heal from all of our intergenerational trauma that causes us to behave this way and start to love ourselves and love each other and not see each other as threats. And I'm talking to white women here. We are going to have to learn how to follow and protect Black and Indigenous women and listen to their wisdom. They are the only ones who are going to guide us out of this. And we have to resource them so that they have the resources they need to be able to do this job.
I will break that down even further, Karen. Thank you for that. And I see a lot of comments coming
Yes.
through the feed about this. I'm glad people are listening and paying attention. Um, I do believe that you're right that the women who are going to lead us out of this, if you just watch, or just look at history, if you look what's mobilizing across the country in every aspect of society, it's Black women that are stepping up and stepping forward. But we can't do that with the shackles on our feet of being sabotaged every time we're trying to do something. And so, okay, you're a little uncomfortable. Like when you talk about resourcing us, please resource us. Like, I've said, and it's coming out. You're going to see something a quote that I'm going to start promoting, but it is around, if the only thing strong, if the only investment you make into brown, Black, and strong is your coffee budget, right? Like your organizations are only putting money behind everybody else, and/or women, white women are prevailing on diversity. um, I would just say, shame on you. Like, I'm not, I don't behoove any woman making money, but the least you could do in this topic is start putting your feet down and demanding that organizations start to look at and compensate and pay people, pay BIPOC people for their work and their wisdom. Number two, inside of organizations, if we haven't fixed their pay, and I don't mean fix their salary level, I mean fix them to a place of where they are able to access equity in a company so that they could start building wealth. The key to success, there are three S's for success. One is you must have sweat, one is you must have suffered, and one is you must have sacrificed. And
Mm.
if you can't check all three of those boxes, which Black women definitely can, if you haven't suffered in this society, You don't have the character or the qualifications now to lead. You must
Mm.
learn to follow. And we are not just here to make sure you're just successful while you step on us and stab us in the back simultaneously. And it's towards each other too. So it's not just white women versus black women. It's us as women towards each other. If I don't
Thank
have,
you. Say
right,
that again.
if I don't have what it takes, oh, let me say that different. Here's an example, and it's with you, Karen. I watched it happen to you, and you saw me speak out about it because,
Mm.
there was an opportunity for a very national recognition to women who are on the ground doing this work. And I saw a white woman friend uh, start taking pictures and start to talk about, oh, I got I. And so I commented and said, get Karen Fleshman there, right? Like Karen Fleshman's feet are on the ground doing this work. Now, that did not happen. That did not happen. For whatever the reasons are, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what happened behind the scenes. But here's my point about it. That is a moment
Mm.
when we have an opportunity to go, is this about me or is this about the actual issue that I care
Mm.
about and I want to progress? And if it's about the issue, which it should be, then it's not me that should step in there. I should let Karen, I need to make sure she comes forward, because if she comes forward with her wisdom, knowledge, and acumen on it, we're going to start to progress this issue a little more. But instead,
Thank you.
society,
Thank you,
right?
Cindy. Yes.
You
Yes.
know the issue I'm
Pass
talking
the
about.
mic. Pass
Pass
the
the
mic.
mic.
Center the people who've been doing the work. Center Black voices, Indigenous voices, Latinx, Asian American. Don't run to center ourselves, white women. This is what we do. Center non-binary people's voices, queer voices. And yes, pass the mic. We are nearing the end of our time together, and there's so many
There's so many
incredible.
questions and comments. I
Yes.
just
Oh,
read.
can you talk about white women in corporate who get hired for positivity training? They take all the money and sabotage all the efforts. Yes. Positivity. Okay. And I do want to actually ask you this. The difference between toxic positivity and hope, and what gives you hope, because I think our conversation has been, things are bad. Yes, we recognize things are bad. And I am also full of hope. And what gives you hope? And let's talk about Erin's comment here.
So I appreciate that comment, Aaron, about the positivity training. Um, that is all about white comfort.
Mm.
And so organizations will hire white women in to think that she's rah-rahing the audience. And by the way, let me just tell you to just start to break down their backgrounds. When you look at the women that come forward and that are being hired as these corporate trainers and corporate speakers, it's beyond pathetic and ashamed that that's what is actually happening, is that they come in. It's kind of the same lean in concept when Sheryl Sandberg went out and said, oh, if we just all do this and I'll do that, well, her base salary is 800,000, her total compensation is 33 million, and her nannies are watching her children at home. She can come in and rah while all of us brown and black people who are in there making 63 cents to the dollar, having to work 2 jobs to be able to keep our kids fed and don't have access to health care. That's real. That's real talk now. And that does, to Aaron's point, it sabotages the work, because we all sit there and know it's just a bunch of crap, right? We know that is just a way to check the box that they hired a woman-owned firm, because the woman-owned firm gets them some more kudos and helps get them some more government contracts, because they have to hire so many minority-owned businesses. So if you're getting government money, you have to actually hire X amount of people of government of businesses, but they use gender to do that. That way they're not uncomfortable. Everybody's happy. They check the box, they get their funding. It's about money. But you asked me a question about what gives me hope, right? So what actually gives me hope is that we're actually talking about it, because this was all taboo, where we couldn't say anything, or we had to, we had to talk in our voices that would make people not feel threatened by how we're going to speak about some of these issues. But instead, I can now be that woman and start talking more about what we need to do to transform and or build something different than what currently exists. I push back and resist that we can actually ever fully transform the way it is. We have to start creating some of our own stuff for each other. We have to start to do that. Period.
I love that so much. What that's exactly what gives me hope too, is we are sharing our stories and realizing how many of us have had the same experiences. I remember a few years ago, my friend Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, who's been a fierce leader in the reproductive justice movement and is now represents Queens in the New York State legislature. She spoke openly about her abortion, and I was so like shocked. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe she's talking about that. I've had an abortion, right? But it never occurred to me to speak publicly about my having. I had internalized shame about it. There's no shame in having an abortion. It was the right thing for me to do, and it's nobody's business but my own, and so because
Karen,
I saw her
when I
role
see you, excuse me for speaking over you. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish.
Oh, no, because I saw her role modeling, speaking publicly about her abortion, that created space for me to speak publicly about my abortion. That created space for other people. And I think like that is how we build a movement, is by sharing our stories.
Yes.
That's what gives me hope.
Yes. Again, I shared my story through my book. I, um, it's difficult. Anything deeply personal I think, is too risky for. I just think it's risky for us, because uh, you know, I'm watching how these folks are moving around us, and um, any piece of information that they have about us can and will be used against us. So, me personally, I protect a lot of my personal information for that reason, because I just don't know what or how. Like, that's what I was articulating about my fear of the having your fees paid for. It's scary, because I've seen the repercussions of authenticity. I've seen the repercussions of honesty. This society, business, the world is not based on honesty. It's based on fake optics and comfort. And so,
100%. And publicly saying you'll pay for the abortion,
mhm,
travel, while donating to the same Republican
yeah,
senators because they will pass tax cuts and
yeah.
environmental protections and worker protections. Um, we're coming to the close of our time. There's so many amazing comments. I want to recognize that SL in California talked about uh that in addition, like I believe we need a variety of tactics here. Okay, I do believe in voting and electoral politics, and I vote in every election, local elections, donate to candidates, volunteer on campaigns. We also really are going to need tremendous volunteer support as poll watchers, the institutional apparatus of our elections, because that is going to come under attack. I totally imagine seeing armed groups of white men patrolling voting places. We are going to need a massive voter protection effort. So, yes, I believe that we need to engage in everything that you're talking about. And I don't believe that electoral politics is going to be sufficient to put enough pressure on these people, because don't forget, right now, Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the president, and they can't get legislation passed. So it's
Mhm.
not just getting them elected. You have to push them, or they don't pass the legislation that we need. We have to end the filibuster. That is what is keeping a lot of this legislation trapped. Cindi, how can people find you? Tell us about your book. Where can they order the book? This book, y'all, this is a brilliant, brilliant book. It will blow your mind. It is so it's a fast read. It's short. You won't be able to put it down. It's a page turner. Where can they get it?
Yeah, Erin, first off, thank you for having me come on today. A couple things. I do want to acknowledge Mandy Fletcher. Mandy Fletcher's comment about when the world has always revolved around you, you rarely recognize that you're centering yourself. I think that's a very important thing for, particularly for white women, to acknowledge and recognize when it becomes about you. I appreciate that you have advocated for my book. I actually just happen to have a copy sitting right next to me. This is my book, The Color of Courage, and I'm going to explain the cover to you. You see it's in black and white. And then this whole crushing racism, that red around it, it's actually a wine glass stain, my love for wine. It's also, I tell the story through a bottle of Syrah, which is a dark-skinned grape full of fire and punch. So that's literally me there. The book is about, it's a story. It's being my takedown after being very successful in a very prominent financial services organization. And I just won't give it away. You have to read it. It shows about what I went through. There's a whole chapter about the patriarchy, the 10 commandments of the GOB, what white women are doing to uphold that. And it's much more of a pragmatic book, I think, the way that I'm highlighting some of these issues. You can get the book online anywhere online where books are sold. So I appreciate the shout out for that. Look, my website is cindybright.com. I'm on air live every Wednesday night on this same platform, all of the LinkedIn, Twitter, and all, having conversations mostly with elected officials or people running for office, where I'm talking about the ecosystem for power, because we must take power. And so we can only do that through our electorate system and then hold the legislators accountable for progress. That's just been kind of my tactic on how I've been going about that. So look, Karen, just to be able to be here for you and I to be here together, and there was no feeling of feeling threatened or insecure because we're both truth telling. And so we have to be able, hugs back to you, Karen, we have to be able to do this. Period. We have to be able to have these kind of conversations with each other and to our communities. We have to bring women together to say, let's fight for each other. Let's stop fighting each other and fight for each other. That's what we have to do, even if it's going to cost me $10 that I've lost in a business deal, so that I can make sure she is getting that message to the people that need to hear it. Right? The revolution is on. We have midterm elections going on as we speak across the country. Let's help the progressive people get reelected or get into office so that we can claim power back. And let's just stop fighting each other. Honest to God, let's stop fighting each other.
Yes. So, that was going to be my last question, is if you could wave a magic wand and get white people to stop doing something or start doing something, what would it be and why?
It's back to the comment that Mandy made, right? Let's just stop making this about an individual, I, me. Let's start talking like other cultures do about we. Let's start looking at us collectively as we, and start to work towards a common goal for all of us. We all need money. We all need money. But our relationship with it is controlling our relationships with each other, and we have to stop that, right? There is enough. Let's mobilize. Let's uphold our sisters let's sacrifice something so that Karen can go out into the world. Let's sweat a little bit more so that we're actually doing something and not just talking about it, right? Let's sacrifice, suffer, and let's sweat our way back into sisterhood, and let's make some things happen here.
Awesome.
That's my final words.
Thank you so much, Cindi. You've been such an amazing guest. Join us next Thursday. So this live happens every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Our guest next Thursday, if you are the mother of a white boy and you're concerned that he might be recruited by a white supremacist group or engage in violent behavior or, get addicted to drugs, you must tune in next week where my guest is going to be a 23-year-old young white man, grew up with some degree of privilege, had a lot of struggles, and has come through it all and is a very healthy, happy, progressive young man. And his name is Parker James. So he's going to be talking about how white supremacists are on there recruiting him and what he needed to experience in order to resist that. So this is a must watch show for anyone who is the mom of a young man or of a boy. And then the week after that, Dr. Corey Wong, you got to watch her TED Talk. It's called Feminist Friendship. And she's going to be talking about how do we build true relationships based in trust across difference as women. And I can't wait for that conversation. So grateful. I'm so sorry. So many people gave so many great comments. Thank you for tuning in. SNL and SNSL in California, my mentor, Karen Valentia Clopton, Kristen, Big Ross, Kalina Jones. Thank you so much for all your comments. I'm sorry we didn't have time to share all of them. Please tell your friends that the recording of this will be on the YouTube channel and on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Share this with a woman who needs to hear this message. Hire Cindi Bright. Bring her to your company. She is a phenomenal workshop facilitator, consultant. She knows HR. She ran HR. She understands everything about corporate HR and how to make things better for people of color, women in the workplace. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next week.
Take care.